and welcome to another episode of Keeping London Healthy. My name is Dr. Mario Elia. Today we'll be joined by Kim Tetley, Executive Director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of London, to tell us a bit about the program and some mentorship opportunities, which, again, in family practice, I see the need with so many kids who are in need of this kind of mentorship. And we'll be also talking about Lyme disease. We're seeing more of this summer, and I'll be giving you guys some helpful information for you and your families. So we'll be right back right after this message. All right, welcome back. I'm happy to be joined today by Kim Tetley. She's the Executive Director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of London. Thanks for joining us today, Kim.
Thanks so much for having me.
So again, a bit of background on what kind of motivated me to invite you on today. As usually we have physicians or health professionals on, or myself talking about specific kind of medical topics. In my practice, as you can imagine, I've got a number of children who obviously could use mentorship, whether through kind of a issue at home or kind of just circumstances. And it's come up a few times where we've suggested Big Brothers Big Sisters, and they've told me that they're on a waiting list, and I thought, well, what better way to kind of bring awareness in the community as to kind of the program than to bring you on, because obviously addressing mentorship early and exposing kids to positive mentors is so important, which obviously a lot of what you guys do. So can you tell us a little bit about the Big Brothers Big Sisters program here in London?
I think at our heart, we're a mentorship organization. So we're really looking for one-to-one mentorship opportunities and specifically working with youth who really need this opportunity. So a lot of our youth and young people have experienced adversity and don't have maybe some consistent mentorship in their lives. And so working with a extensive group of volunteers who are very, very dedicated and matching them to youth and young people who have shared interests and finding a good fit so that there's ideally a really long-term relationship that's built. And with our volunteers, with our community-based program, which is what we're most well known for, we are looking for a pretty big commitment from folks. So this looks like 2 to 4 hours every single week that a mentor and mentee, or a big and a little, as we like to call them, go out into the community and do a variety of activities. And that could be everything from going to the library to going to Boulder Mountain to anything in between. So lots of different interests and different opportunities for matches to have shared interests and spend time together.
Perusing the website, obviously you guys have a few different programs that are available, each with, I'm sure, a different focus. Can you tell us a little bit about those different programs?
Yeah, the one I was just describing is our community-based program. So that's one-to-one matches where a big and a little or a mentor and a mentee are going out into the community and doing a variety of activities. We also have a site-based program. So this takes place at school. So it's a little bit less of a commitment. This is 1 hour a week during the school year. So the mentor goes to school and has an opportunity to engage with a young person in elementary school for the duration of the school year. And often those matches are repeated year over year, but we don't have programming when the school is on break. And then we do also offer some group programming that we deliver through the summer, et cetera, to meet the needs of our mentees. And that is done with a larger group and some volunteers as well.
So the school-based program, so is this initiated by the parents, by teachers who may identify children as perhaps benefiting from a mentor? Like, where is that often initiated by?
Great question. So we have a partnership with the school boards here in London, and I would say it's a combination of what you just said. So in some cases it is family members. In some cases it's us, the agency, saying, we have these youth on our wait list for a community-based program, but we'd love to see if we could get them a mentor in the interim at our site-based program. And oftentimes it's guidance counselors, principals, teachers expressing interest to say, we think these youth would really benefit from an additional experience and a strong developmental relationship with a mentor. And so we do our best to accommodate those requests.
Now, how does a program kind of decide who gets matched with who? Is it, are we looking at kind of the attributes of the mentor and kind of the needs, or is it kind of random?
It is a extensive and I'd say very intentional matchmaking process. So in terms of when a volunteer comes and expresses interest, we do an interview and a screening. Child safety is always, first and foremost our priority. But in that process, we're also learning about who the mentors are, what they're interested in, what they like to do. And similarly on the mentee end or youth enrollment, we're learning about them. What do they like? What are the challenges? What, if any, adversity have they experienced? And what are they kind of needing? Are they, do they need a specific type of role model in their life, or what would the family love to see? And then from there, we are able to match folks based on interest, personality type, need, etc. So it really is quite an extensive process, and it does take time to match really effectively. It's a little bit of a shorter period of time, just given the school year for our school-based program. But similarly, really want to focus on finding a great match that both the mentor and the mentee are going to feel really fulfilled and really positive about, and look forward to each week.
For this school-based program, I'm interested in that program specifically. Like, so is the school identifying children who would be well suited as mentors as well?
The school's identifying youth to be the mentees, so our littles, and then we're still involved with the volunteer recruitment, and it is an adult that's going into the school to
Okay.
work.
Okay.
It mirrors our community-based program. It is, 18 plus, and we're looking for adults. It can be role models, etc. We have a lot of students, so Western students, Fanshawe students, that find that program a good fit from a scheduling standpoint. And we do look for, a 1-year commitment, but for the school program, that looks like September to June, as opposed to 12 months of the year when they may not be living permanently in London. So that's kind of the difference there.
And I know there is a bit of a wait list, obviously, for some of the programs. I'm not sure if you can put a number to it, but how long generally is the wait list right now?
Youth or young people are generally waiting about a year. We actually have our wait list closed right now, just as we're working through our family enrollment and trying to match all the youth on our wait list. I would say the demand is exponential. And we have seen, since COVID and recovering from some gaps in our in-person programming, that it's taken us a while to get back to where we were, to our same service delivery levels pre-COVID, in terms of volunteers. And we want to ensure that our matches are very intentional and can be set up to be long-term, and that takes time, but we'd love to serve as many kids as possible. And when we look at our wait list, ideally we would have about 60 kids on our wait list at any given time, because we do want to be able to ensure we have, the ability to match with the volunteers that are coming through. And but we also see we always have a need for male mentors. We have a lot of boys on our wait list where the family has expressed that they would love to see a male mentor, because maybe that's a figure that's missing from their circle of care right now. And we struggle with being able to fulfill that. And so, we're always looking for more volunteers.
For a mentor so again, 18 plus, the age range, you said, and no max age, no maximum age? No, okay.
No, yep.
How do they get involved? Like what steps? How do they get involved, and what's the process in terms of training and requirements that they should be expecting?
The first step would be to express an interest. So on our website, which is london.bigbrothersbigsisters.ca, there's a whole section on volunteers. You can read about our different programs and then apply or express interest through our website. And then a member of our team will follow up. The first step is an interview process. It's quite extensive, followed by reference checks and vulnerable sector screening. So again, child safety is at the forefront of what we do, and we really want to ensure we know who our volunteers are, what they're interested in, so we can make that match effectively. And from there, we do a fairly extensive volunteer training. So there is an in-person component to that. It's around 3 to 5 hours, depending on the group size, where we do everything from, really focus on developmental relationships and what it looks like and how you can effectively be a mentor through expressing care and challenging the growth of a young person, and providing that support and expanding their horizons, and all of those things that make a really effective mentorship relationship. And then as well as child safety and just the logistics of how it works to go on visits, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all provided. And then we do have as well supplemental trainings, especially working with youth who have experienced various types of adversity, that have different identities that may require different needs, et cetera. So That's kind of ongoing and always available to our volunteers. And each match is assigned a professional caseworker. So there's a lot of checkpoints throughout the process in terms of ensuring support's given, that the relationship on both sides is really productive and positive, and that there's no concerns on either end, that the match is a good fit. And so that is, done throughout the year, more in the first year, and then as mentorship relationships move into second, third, fourth year, which we hope they do, and have really long-term success. That looks like a little bit less after that.
And obviously an important time to kind of get this process started leading into the school year. Obviously that's going to be a kind of a higher need
Yeah, so
for you
we
guys.
have, every time is an important time, I'd say, for especially for our community program and our, really moving the numbers on our wait list. But especially for our site-based program, we have a huge demand. We couldn't have enough volunteers. If we had, a huge influx of volunteers, we would find youth that could benefit from that experience. And so now, and moving into early September, and then again we do an intake in January, would be an amazing time to see sort of an increased interest in our program.
You mentioned some kind of activities that mentors and mentees can engage in. Can you give us some other kind of examples of some interesting things? Because they're not going to be all things that cost money and are kind of
Totally.
resource intensive. What kind of things do mentors and mentees do?
We are really adamant that it can be low cost, no cost opportunities. So, going to the library is awesome. We have partnerships with some organizations across the city. So the factory, and the Children's Museum, as an example, would do 2-for-1 offerings for us. So things like that are really great. Bowler Mountain is another kind of more exciting opportunity, that provides a discounted rate for our matches. But we're also in the Forest City, so there's tons of hiking trails and things like that, that people can explore. And we have a beautiful match space here at our office that's bookable for matches to come. And we've got video games, board games, air hockey, foosball, those kind of things, and people can come here and use that space. And then as comfort builds, folks will also have their mentees to their homes and things like that. So lots of opportunity. Doesn't have to be anything flashy or I think sometimes just kind of the regular things, going for ice cream is where we see these really meaningful relationships grow.
Main message from today: if someone's 18 plus and feels that they have I'll say the skills, but really any interest in becoming a mentor, please consider contacting you guys. Now, for those who want to support the program, but for whatever reason don't think that mentorship is for them, obviously there is a cost to kind of running an organization like this. Other ways that you guys can be supported?
We are a charitable organization, so I would say no amount of contribution is too small in terms of, if folks are having a birthday party and want to support an organization in lieu of gifts or any other event like that, we're very appreciative. In terms of special events, we do have a golf tournament coming up on September 14th, at Echo Valley Golf Course. So that's an opportunity to support. And then we also have an annual gala that takes place in May. So those are kind of our big events. But in addition to that, we're running a variety of campaigns, and would love to have folks support in any way that they can.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, again, thanks again for joining us today, Kim, and telling us all about your program. And hopefully we can inspire some people to step forward and offer to become mentors, and likely change the life of a child who needs it. So thanks again for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thanks. And we'll be right back after this message. All right, welcome back. Again, thanks to Kim Tetley from Big Brothers Big Sisters for joining us and giving us all that helpful information. Going to talk about Lyme disease. Now, some of you have been hearing about it this summer. There's been more talk in the news about it. In my practice, so again, I'm a family doctor. I've been in practice for just over 11 years now, and I've only seen 3 cases of Lyme disease in my career, 2 of which have been in the last month. And I posted this on social media on our practice Facebook page, and we got a lot of obviously people concerned and asking questions about it. And I thought this would be a good time to address this on the show and give you guys at home a bit of background about Lyme disease, what to be watching for, how to prevent things. So we'll start with what is Lyme disease. So Lyme is a disease caused by a bacteria. It's a spirochete, which is a type of bacteria, and the name of the bacteria is Borrelia burgdorferi. Long name. So that second word, burgdorferi, it's actually named after the person who first isolated this bacteria back in 1982. He's a Swiss guy, Wilhelm Burgdorfer. So discovered it, and lo and behold, he gets the bacteria named after him. So Borrelia burgdorferi is the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. How do we get this bacteria? So this is where we talk about ticks so much. So deer ticks do have the ability to transfer this bacteria, this Borrelia bacteria, from animals or between people, but essentially that's the reservoir for Lyme. Now, deer ticks, not dog ticks. This is the first kind of thing to keep in mind when it comes to Lyme. Dog ticks cannot transfer Lyme disease. Okay, so if you get bitten by a dog tick or you have a dog tick on you, impossible. Now, how do we distinguish between a deer tick and a dog tick? There are fantastic websites online. If you just Google tick identification, there's fairly clear images. And now there's various forms of deer tick depending on kind of where in its life cycle it is. Same thing for dog ticks. But if you, again, a simple Google search for a tick identification, you'll see lots of images. You can get the tick if you do find a tick, and you can tell whether it's a deer tick or a dog tick. So again, dog ticks cannot transfer Lyme disease. Deer ticks can. Now, why are we talking about Lyme disease more so than we did, years ago? So as the climate has changed, we know that, especially with warmer winters, deer ticks aren't being kind of killed off in the winter like they were when we had colder winters. So and you can kind of see the maps if you look at maps online of how Lyme has spread and kind of what areas in North America it involves. We're kind of seeing more of a northern spread, and that's because we're seeing more deer ticks. And again, they're living through the winter more easily than they would before. So that's why we're seeing an increase in this. And again, reflects on my own practice, where again, seen a couple of cases recently where I hadn't seen one in a while. So the risk, we got to keep this in perspective. The risk of actually developing Lyme disease following a tick bite is still only about 1 in 3%. Okay, so the vast majority of deer ticks and deer tick bites are not resulting in Lyme disease. So we got to keep that in mind when it comes to overall risk. And because I know people are panicked when they find a tick or there's any involvement of a tick. Again, still is a low risk, but we need to take it seriously because we want to be avoiding acute Lyme, which we'll talk about, and we want to make sure that we're not leaving Lyme untreated, because that can lead to long-term symptoms. Okay, so what do we need to know? A tick can only transfer Lyme is if it's on you for more than 24 hours. So the big thing I tell patients is if you find a tick on you and you're absolutely certain that that tick has not been on you for more than 24 hours, you can be extremely confident that there's no risk of Lyme disease to you. Okay. If there's a question as to whether it's been on you for more than 24 hours or not, like if it's somewhere on your body where you don't necessarily check on your back, or you didn't check your legs for a bit and there's a possibility it was on you for more than 24 hours, then you should be contacting your primary care provider. Okay. The reason is that if someone has a tick on them and it could have been on them for more than 24 hours, and it was removed within the last 72 hours. So if you took a tick off, 5 days ago, and you don't have a rash, you don't have any symptoms, we're not really going to treat you if it was that long ago. But if it was potentially on you for more than 24 hours, and if you removed it, that removal was within the past 72 hours, and you're in a region that has high tick prevalence, which London, Ontario would be considered high Lyme prevalence in our ticks, then you would be eligible for an antibiotic. So what we do is with those, we call kind of high risk exposures, we give people a dose of doxycycline, which is an antibiotic. You get 200 milligrams once, and that substantially reduces the risk of any transmission of Lyme to you and risk of acquiring Lyme disease. So again, if you find a tick on you, it's been on for more than 24 hours potentially, whether you have a rash or not, then see your doc, and we'll likely put you on antibiotics. If your doc's cycline allergic, there's other options as well that we can look at. Okay. Now, again, the two cases I've seen in the last few weeks were actually cases where they actually had developed what we call acute Lyme disease. So early acute Lyme disease, meaning that they had multiple symptoms. So I'm going to go over some symptoms with you here. You don't have to have all of these, but we often see a bullseye rash. It's a target rash. It kind of looks like a target. So there's the kind of red and white circles, various sizes, anywhere from kind of that big to even bigger. People with acute Lyme will sometimes feel tired, achy, headache, fever, chills, stiff neck, less so, decreased appetite, but they feel kind of fluey. If you've had a tick exposure and are having those symptoms, you need to see your doctor right away, because then we actually do a longer course of antibiotics. That's probably about 3 weeks of antibiotics if you have that acute Lyme. So again, two different approaches. One is tick exposure, no symptoms, but on you for long enough to maybe transmit it. So we give people that 1 dose of antibiotic. Then there's the people with multiple symptoms, with a history of likely tick exposure, the rash, the fluiness, that kind of thing, and that's the 3 weeks of antibiotics. Okay, so it's important to determine that. People will often ask about blood work. I was exposed to a tick. Can I get some blood work done to see if I have Lyme disease or not? Blood work really doesn't help us a whole lot, because it can take a number of weeks after exposure and after even symptom onset to have positive antibodies to Lyme. So when we're diagnosing it and we're treating a patient, we're not really relying on blood work a whole lot. So if your doctor doesn't do blood work, don't worry. That's pretty typical. We're basing it more on the history and more on the symptoms. Another kind of thing to keep in mind is around the issue of kids. Some of the antibiotics that we give, we can give to kids for a short period of time, but we take into account how likely the Lyme is. So again, it's different. It's doc by doc. So again, don't be surprised if when you bring your kid with a tick exposure or certain symptoms that they may do something different than adults. That's just based on the antibiotics and the level of concern about giving certain antibiotics to kids. Okay, so the main thing I want people to take away from today is that tick exposure. So deer tick versus dog tick. If it's a dog tick, don't even bother calling your doctor. Then we're not going to do anything about it, because there's no risk of Lyme. If it's a deer tick that you managed to take off and you're sure that it was not on for more than 24 hours, don't have to bother your doctor. Even if it's a deer tick, there's no way that will have transferred Lyme disease. Okay. Now, if you have a lot of those other symptoms, especially the bullseye rash with a lot of the other symptoms, don't recall a tick exposure, but you have a lot of those other symptoms, can't hurt to actually reach out to your doctor, because one of the cases I did see, he didn't remember a tick being on him, so obviously it got him on the back and fell off before he even knew it, and definitely was Lyme disease. So again, if you have the classic symptoms of acute Lyme, see your doctor. The last thing I want to address is this kind of issue of chronic Lyme disease. A lot of people with non-specific symptoms of like months, years of tiredness and achiness and joint pains. There's a lot of talk online in some kind of alternative medicine circles about chronic Lyme and how chronic Lyme is underdiagnosed. I have to caution people that this isn't as common as people would think. If you're getting testing not done by kind of a medical doctor that tells you have Lyme disease because of some test that was done in the States and sent off, and they're recommending like weeks or months of antibiotics, that's likely taking you down a rabbit hole that you probably shouldn't be going down, because chronic Lyme isn't actually, in the absence of someone who had acute Lyme disease, chronic Lyme disease is extremely rare and unfortunately kind of overdiagnosed, and people are getting antibiotics inappropriately for that. So that's the chronic Lyme piece. People do have chronic Lyme. It happens. I don't want to discount that, but just know that there's way too many people claiming that their patients have chronic Lyme, and again, expensive treatments and heavy duty antibiotics, and make sure you follow up with your medical doctor about this, because we want to make sure that you're not getting any inappropriate treatments. So hopefully you found some of that information about Lyme disease helpful. And back to our Big Brothers, Big Sisters conversation. Hopefully that some of you consider becoming a mentor. And thanks to Kim Tetley from Big Brothers, Big Sisters for joining us today. And until next time, stay healthy.